From Newsweek, Texas could vote to secede from the U.S. in 2023 as GOP pushes for referendum. The Texas Republicans are pushing for a referendum to decide whether the state should secede from the U.S. The demand for Texans to be allowed to vote on the issue in 2023 was one of many measures adopted in the Texas GOP's party platform following last week's state convention in Houston. Now, I want to point out this is not the first time someone's called for this, but it seems to be moving forward. Under a section titled State Sovereignty, the platform states, pursuant to Article 1, Section 1 of the Texas Constitution, the federal government has impaired our right to local self-government. Therefore, federally mandated legislation that infringes upon the 10th Amendment rights of Texas should be ignored, opposed, refused, and nullified. Texas retains the right to secede from the U.S., and the Texas legislature should be called upon to pass a referendum consistent thereto. Now, let me ask you, with all of these libertarian types moving to Texas,
yep,
do you think there's going to be increasing support for Texas secession?
Oh, absolutely. The National Libertarian Party just passed a platform change in support of secession. And the Florida State Libertarian Party did earlier this year. We're all about it because we think that people should be able to live their own lives and just peacefully separate. We emphasis on peaceful, but
then maybe there's a real possibility for dissolution like the Soviet Union as opposed to the Civil War.
That's what I'm hoping for. And I'm hoping that even if it takes a little bit longer that we could do that. And even if it's not 100%.
Are you actually hoping for it? Or are you saying instead of violence, you'd rather it be peaceful? Because I'm saying any dissolution of the U.S. is a bad thing.
I'm trying to look at it realistically, which is I don't know how we can come together as Americans when we fundamentally have so many major disagreements.
Well, it's not shared values that is keeping us together anymore. It's decadence and how comfortable we've gotten.
Yeah.
How fat and happy they're keeping us, and frankly, pop culture that they're feeding us.
And no one wants to go to war because war is awful.
Yeah, and the people who fought a civil war before were made of much tougher stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So realistically, we're not talking about whether it would be a good or a bad thing. It would never happen. Or maybe I'm just like operating on the principle that nothing ever happens.
Well,
yeah, that optimism bias. That's normalcy bias. It's doesn't happen. It's not going to happen. But like it's what Ian was saying earlier, that these people don't actually want civil war. And I agree. They don't know what civil war is.
Right.
But when you see these Antifa people going around with guns and shooting people, like the dude in Portland got shot, it doesn't matter if you're tough. It matters if you're dumb. It matters if, Forrest Cooper was on the show last week, and he said the people who are good at violence aren't doing it. And you have to ask yourself why that is.
Because we know how awful it is.
Well, the people who have trained in war, who know how to do war, are staying away from this stuff because they know how bad it is. But the people who are engaging in it don't care. Right. I'll tell you, once it comes, they'll regret it. But by then it's too late. So I was reading this great post. So let me tell you something. Do you know what bourgeoisie means? Bourgeois?
The actual definition? No.
Yeah. Do you know? Anybody?
It just makes me think of hoity-toity wealthy rich people.
Wrong.
It's
Ian.
middle class, I think.
Wrong. Yeah, it's middle class. Yeah.
Is it the proletariat that's
the working class?
Working. Then who's the upper class? What do they call them?
I don't know. I don't know. All I know is the bourgeois, bougie, it means middle class. So what these people don't understand is these like Antifa urban liberal types, they're the people who get purged in the communist revolution.
Yeah.
They're the bad ones. There's this meme post where they're like a bunch of Trump QAnon rednecks are going to team up with inner city gangs because they have more in common than the laptop class.
Yeah.
With each other than the laptop class. And so there's going to be these uppity hipsters who want to eat vegan food, wondering, what's going on. And the people who literally have nothing are going to be like, you are the people whose wealth we will redistribute.
Yes.
And the rich people who have all their money in Panama and Switzerland are going to laugh and be like, can't do anything to me.
Well, that's a common part of critical theory in Marxism, is that the middle class is what has kept the proletariat from rising up and defeating and trying to overthrow the upper classes, because they see the middle class as, oh, that's so attainable. I want to move to that. I want to become that.
I bring that up, though, because I think you made a good point, Mary. What's holding this country together is basically everybody's fat and happy and doesn't want to risk their Krispy Kremes in their Marvel movies.
I'd prefer not to. I'd prefer to not be shot in the street. That sounds like a horrible time.
Well, I mean, like, that's the worst of it. But even your movie theater being shut down.
It sucked.
Yeah, entertainment is getting worse. Our food is poison. So if they can't even keep up the appearance that we're comfortable and distracted, I understand why some people's minds are going towards civil strife at the very least, or civil war. Yeah.
I think civil war.